Hi, welcome back to another episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. Today I'm going to be doing wild salmon. So I'm going to do wild salmon with some sweet potato puree and some grilled Napa cabbage. And along the way I'm going to use some wonderful spices for Montana flavor to savor. So stay tuned as I bring the forest to your table. So the first thing we need to do is get our sweet potatoes in the oven because these will take quite a while. So I've got it at 425 degrees and it's probably going to take about 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just toss them with a little bit of olive oil, drizzle that on there, and get these in the oven. Then the next thing I want to get ready is my cabbage. This is one of the most simplest things that has actually quite a bit of flavor punch. But I do Napa cabbage leaves or just cabbage leaves, and I'm gonna grill them. But in order to get them kind of softened and ready for that, again, we're gonna toss them with a little bit of olive oil, and this time I'm gonna hit them with a little salt and pepper. And then I'm gonna get them on the grill and get some nice, beautiful char marks on there. Get some salt and pepper. It's really simple and just adds a little bit of brightness to your dish when we're doing something kind of rich like salmon. This is wild salmon. Now, wild salmon versus farm salmon, there's a lot of controversy on that, but typically your wild salmon is more pure, more organic, and it's caught sustainably. So it's wonderful for you as far as, and the farm salmon can have a little bit more of other issues because they grow them tighter together, where the wild salmon get to swim in the wide open. So it just makes for a healthier animal, or fish in this case. So like I said, we're just gonna toss these cabbage with a little olive oil on both sides and get some salt and pepper on both sides, and then hit them with some really high heat grill. So seeing how those sweet potatoes take a little bit longer, I already had some in there, so we can get started with our sweet potato maple mash. So let me get a set of tongs, take those off of that hot pan, and show you what I do with that. Okay, so the other thing I did was I melted some butter, just a couple of tablespoons. And the way that I do this recipe is I look about a tablespoon of butter per potato. So if you're only doing 2 potatoes, a couple of tablespoons, melt that off. And then we're gonna add a couple of tablespoons, again, a tablespoon of butter, a tablespoon of maple syrup per potato. So we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup there. And this is pure maple syrup. It's not your artificially sweetened one. You wanna go for the pure. Better flavor, better for you. And then what I'm gonna do is take these hot sweet potatoes and just open them up. And I'm gonna get all of that wonderful cooked flesh out of there and put it in with my melted butter, but I want that lining there. Hot potato, this is where the term hot potato comes from. Get this other one. Just want to get that skin off of there, but it is so hot. That might help if I take a little bit of that tip off of there. That in there, and all of that caramelized color and flavor is just going to be wonderful for this. It's actually a very, very simple way to do sweet potatoes that actually brings it up a notch. And there's a difference. You can do, some people call these yams, some people call them sweet potatoes. It goes back and forth. So technically I think these are actually sweet potatoes. However, if you want to call it a yam, that's fine, you can do that. I'm going to call this maple sweet potato mash. because I'm the chef and I get to. Now, like I said, all that is butter and maple syrup, but we're gonna actually add a little bit of salt and a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. And then I'm gonna get my handy immersion blender, and we're gonna pulse this up so it's nice and pureed. Perfect. So now, because we're gonna do blackened salmon with my Montana Flavor to Savor blackening spice. If you don't have my blackening spice, you need to get it, or just use whichever kind of Cajun seasoning that you have. So now I'm gonna put this back on the stove top because it can stay warm while we get our salmon ready. Montana Flavor to Savor. We've spent a decade creating the best flavors with all natural ingredients, gluten-free, with no fillers or no preservatives. You can find the best flavors at Montana Flavor to Savor. Visit our website at www.mtflavortosavor.com. With an explosion of flavor that tantalizes your taste buds, there's only one way to experience the last best taste of Montana, and that's with Montana Flavor to Savor seasonings. Get yours today. So let's get our wild salmon prepped and ready. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna make sure it's nice and dry, but you're also gonna make sure that this is actually skin on, because I like it that way. It keeps the flesh of the fish together while you're cooking, and then it's actually really easy to take that skin off after you've cooked your fish. So it does this a little bit easier preparation, in my opinion. But I'm gonna dry these off, and then I'm gonna coat them with some Montana Flavor to Savor blackening seasoning. And then we're gonna sear it in a really hot cast iron pan. So I tell you, I don't fish very much, but I did go fly fishing, and it was one of those wonderful experiences. I've done it twice now, and I think I'll get a little bit more addicted to it and going back and doing it again. But on our river in Montana where we fish, it's very fast flowing. So my poor fishing guide is constantly rowing, and you get a fish on and he's got to row backwards to keep you as you're trying to get this fish to come in off of your line. So it's actually a big production to do. I enjoyed it, but it's totally different than line fishing like you would, or ocean fishing. It's actually an art form to it. So I need to practice some more. So now I'm just gonna kind of dry those off. I've made sure that there's no pin bones in here and whatnot, but just kind of run your fingers over there in those seams and make sure that there's no bones, because we don't want that. And I'm gonna do a pretty nice coat of our blackening seasoning. And this is pretty potent, so I'm only gonna do one side. I'm not gonna do both sides because it's a thin fish, and you always are gonna do the sear side, what we call the presentation side. That's what you sear first, because that always gets the most color, is the presentation side. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get these into a hot cast iron skillet, sear them off, and then we'll be grilling some of that Napa cabbage, and then we'll be ready to plate. Okay, so now this pan is searing hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of my grapeseed oil just to coat the bottom of the pan. It's got a higher smoke point, so that's why I use that, but it's a little bit better than canola oil, so that's kind of why I use grapeseed oil. Now, like I was saying, we want presentation, so because I've got oil in that pan and it's gonna splatter up. So always put your product away from you as you hear that sizzle, and gently put that in the pan. Now, a lot of people will sit there and they'll mess with the pan and mess with the pan. Just leave it alone, don't touch it, because we want to have that beautiful sear on the top side. So let me clean this up while those sizzle away. So now you can also see, pay attention to the color of your flesh. And also you can kind of see how that's lifting up, but you can also see that change, how it's whiter, the red is disappearing as that white is coming upward. So that also tells you it's getting close to flip over. But if it releases well, then you're ready. Be very, very careful in doing this. But beautiful blackening sear on there. Whew! Always watch out for those splatters. And now we're gonna let that side get cooked through the meat, through the skin. Because this is the only side that I'm gonna plate and you're gonna see, but it's so much easier after the fish is cooked to easily slide that skin off with a fish spatula. So I'm just gonna let that cook up, and again, you can watch your flesh on your fish. We're gonna cook this to about a medium, so we still wanna have it be somewhat red, but not raw. And one of the other ways that you can tell is when you're ready, the flakes of the fish will start to separate. So you can pay attention to some of those areas and really see when your fish is ready. So I gotta let these cook for a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ready to plate. So now that our salmon is nice and blackened, we're gonna get ready to plate. I'm gonna bring that over here, put it on something that's not going to get completely burned, like the countertop, because that is scorching hot. And then I've got my maple mashed sweet potato, and then I've also got my grilled cabbage. See how we got those beautiful little grill marks on there? It's gonna be delicious, trust me, it's a refreshing little part to this. Now what I'm gonna do is, remember how I told you how it'd be so much easier to get that skin off? Well, here it is. The skin will release so much better. Let's take it out of that. This pan is super hot. I'm gonna get rid of that. There we go. So now you can kind of see how you get your little fish spatula in there and pull that right off. And there's your crispy skin done. Now a lot of people do enjoy eating that crispy skin. You can certainly do that. It's perfectly edible. But just for presentation reasons, and also because it's gonna be on top of my maple sweet potato mash, I'm gonna leave that skin off. I had some clients that I used to cook for that had the other helpers in the house. My clients didn't like the skin on, but the helpers did. So I always took the skin off for my clients, but then put it right back in the pan and crisped it up for the other helpers. So that's a shout out to you, Katie and Leah. So now what we're gonna do, get ready to plate. I'm gonna put down some of this beautiful, sweet maple mash. And anytime you have something that's spicy, like this Cajun blackened seasoning on this salmon, you wanna have just a little bit more refreshing sweetness, because you're offsetting with that spicy salmon that we've done. Whoops, let's get rid of that skin. And I just want to take this grilled cabbage, and I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a rough chop. And what I like to do is put this right on top, like so. And then I'm gonna put that salmon right on top of there. And there you have my Montana Flavor to Savor blackening wild salmon over grilled cabbage and maple sweet potato mash. Thank you for watching another episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen, where I did wild salmon with my Montana Flavor to Savor blackening spice, and I put that over the top of maple sweet potato mashed and simply grilled cabbage leaves, but it was a very well composed dish, so I hope you try it. Find me on social media at chefshellymeyer.com and the spices at mtflavortosavor.com. Catch me next time on another episode where I continue to bring the forest to your table.